the bridge of Khazad-Dum.
The most magnificent city anyone could have ever seen is now buried deep beneath a mountain in ruins. How could something so magnificent end up like this? Well, in case you don't know, we're talking about Khazad-Dûm, a legendary dwarf city which was once a shining gem hidden deep within the Misty Mountains. But what happened to this once glorious place? What secrets lie behind its rise and dramatic fall? And how did it all begin? What made Khazad-Dûm so special? Was it a rare metal or something else? But why is this city buried so deep beneath mountains? Well, to know all about this, you have to stay tuned till the end of the video, because today we'll be talking about the full history and story of Moria, or Khazad-Dûm. Greatest of all the mansions of the dwarves was Khazad-Dûm, the Dwarven, had Hadrond in the Elvish tongue, that was afterwards in the days of its darkness called Moria. This statement was given by Quinta Silmarillion of the Sindar. Khazad-Dûm, known to many as Moria, was once the most spectacular city of the dwarves. It was so grand that it earned a place in the hearts of those who knew it. For many ages, Khazad-Dûm was a hub of activity. The dwarves who lived there were skilled miners and builders, turning the mountain into a massive, thriving community. They created grand halls and intricate tunnels that stretched from one end of the mountain range to the other. The city was so vast that you could walk through it from one side of the Misty Mountains to the other. However, time brought changes. The city that was once filled with the sounds of busy dwarves and the clatter of their work eventually fell silent. The darkness that came to Khazad-Dûm earned a new name, Moria, which means the Black Chasm, or the Black Pit in Sindarin. This new name reflected the city's fall from its former glory, as shadows and danger began to encroach upon its once brilliant halls. A long time ago, Durin the dwarf discovered a hidden valley beneath the Misty Mountains. In this valley, he found a beautiful lake that reflected the stars like a mirror. He named the lake Khazad-Dûm, which means mirror mirror. This lake became a very special place for all dwarves, and they put up a stone called Durin Stone to remember this moment. In the caves above the lake, Durin and his followers started building their grand city. They carved out the great gates of Khazad-Dûm and built the first hall, which led to a bridge over a deep chasm. From this point, they expanded their city both up into the mountain and down into its depths. They dug extensive mines that stretched far from the main parts of the city. Over the centuries, Khazad-Dûm grew into the largest and most famous dwarven city ever built. News of its splendor spread far, reaching even the elves living in the distant lands of Beleriand. These elves heard about Khazad-Dûm from their dwarven friends in the Blue Mountains. Durin, known as Durin the Deathless, passed away before the end of the First Age. He was buried in a grand tomb inside Khazad-Dûm. His descendants continued to rule the city, preserving its greatness for generations to come. In the Second Age, Khazad-Dûm reached new heights of power and prosperity. After the First Age ended, the city grew even more impressive. Many dwarves from the Blue Mountains, whose homes had been destroyed, moved to Khazad-Dûm. They brought with them valuable skills in metalwork, crafting, and building. This influx of people and expertise sparked a golden age for Khazad-Dûm, turning it into a hub of creativity and wealth. By around 40 of the Second Age, Khazad-Dûm had expanded so much that it stretched from one side of Misty Mountains to the other. It reached the western cliffs known as the Walls of Moria. During this time, Narvi and Celebrimbor, the Lord of Eregion, worked together to build the magical West Gate to Moria. This was a significant achievement as it showcased the close relationship between Khazad-Dûm and Eregion. Unfortunately, this golden era did not last. In the year 1697 of the Second Age, Sauron, a powerful and dark force, attacked Eregion and overwhelmed the land of the elves. With their allies in danger, the dwarves of Khazad-Dûm had to protect their own city. They closed the gates of Moria to keep out Sauron's forces and isolated themselves from the outside world. At the same time, orcs, who were a constant threat, began attacking the dwarven lands. They even managed to capture Mount Gundabad, an important stronghold for the dwarves. This period marked a significant turning point in the city's history, as it dealt with both external dangers and internal struggles. In the Third Age, Khazad-Dûm, known for its incredible wealth due to the rare mithril found in its mines, faced a dramatic change. The dwarves, eager to find more of this precious metal, dug deeper and deeper into the earth over the centuries. Unfortunately, their relentless mining led to a disaster. In the year 1980 of the Third Age, the dwarves' digging accidentally unleashed a terrible creature from ancient times. This monster, a Balrog, caused massive destruction in Khazad-Dûm. It killed King Durin VI, and from then on, it was called Durin's Bane. The following year, the city suffered another blow when Durin's son, Nain I, also died. With their leaders gone and their city in ruins, the dwarves had to flee their ancient home. Khazad-Dûm, once one of the richest cities in Middle-earth, became dark and empty, filled only with the menace of the Balrog. It was now called Moria, which means the Black Pit. For nearly 500 years, a Balrog roamed Moria alone. Around 2480 of the Third Age, orcs began to settle in the Misty Mountains. Sauron, a dark power, sent his creatures to occupy the old city of Khazad-Dûm. The orcs, coming from the north, used Moria as a base for their raids. They not only plundered the city's treasures, but also began to worship the Balrog as their god. Although the orcs suffered a major defeat in the Battle of Nanduhirion in 2799, where their numbers were greatly reduced, the Balrog remained undefeated. Khazad-Dûm continued to be a place of darkness and fear. Between 2845 and 2850, the wizard Gandalf entered Moria in search of King Durin II, who had gone missing while traveling to Erebor. The city's halls, which had once echoed with the sounds of dwarvish activity, were now silent and haunted, occupied by orcs and watched over by the fearsome Balrog. In the year 2989 of the Third Age, a brave attempt was made to reclaim Khazad-Dûm, the once grand dwarf city, now lost in shadow and darkness. This ambitious venture was led by Balin, a prominent dwarf who had previously joined Bilbo Baggins on his famous quest to Erebor. With high hopes, Balin rallied a group of dwarves from Erebor to return to their ancestral home, believing they could restore it to its former glory. At first, the mission showed promise. Balin and his followers fought bravely against the orcs that had taken over the city. They managed to secure several of Moria's eastern halls, driving the orcs out of important areas. Among their significant finds was Durin's axe, an important and revered artifact for the dwarves. This discovery was a sign that their efforts were not in vain, and for a while it seemed as if the city might be on its way to being reclaimed. Unfortunately, their initial successes were not enough to overcome the overwhelming challenges they faced. By 2994, the tide turned against them. The orcs, who had regrouped and strengthened their forces, launched a fierce counter-offensive. Despite the dwarves' courageous efforts, they were unable to withstand the renewed assault. The orcs overwhelmed Balin's colony, leading to their defeat and death. The once thriving city was again lost, now more perilous than ever. During this period, another notable figure, Aragorn, the chieftain of the Dunedain, entered Moria for reasons not entirely clear. His visit to the city added another layer of mystery and intrigue to its already complex history. Several years later, in the year 3018, the Fellowship of the Ring, led by Frodo Baggins, encountered their own trials in Moria. Initially, the Fellowship planned to cross the Misty Mountains, but they were forced to change their route due to heavy snow on Mount Caradhras. Seeking an alternative, they decided to traverse Moria, hoping to pass through the ancient city beneath the mountains. Inside Moria, they discovered Balin's journal, which offered a glimpse into the fate of Balin's expedition and the dangers that awaited them. The Fellowship's hopes of a simple passage were quickly dashed when they were attacked by trolls and orcs. The true terror, however, was a Balrog, a dark and ancient creature from the Elder Days. Gandalf, one of the Fellowship's most powerful members, confronted the Balrog on a narrow bridge within the city. In a dramatic battle, Gandalf fought fiercely against the Balrog. He managed to break a section of the bridge, sending the Balrog plummeting into the abyss below. As the Balrog fell, its whip caught Gandalf's leg, putting him down with it. The two plunge into the darkness, leaving the remaining members of the Fellowship to escape Moria and seek refuge in Lothlorien, a safe haven in the Elven realm. What the Fellowship did not realize was that both Gandalf and the Balrog survived their fall. Their struggle continued from the depths of Moria to the heights of the mountains above. The battle caused massive damage to the Endless Stair and the surrounding mountain peak. Gandalf fought with every ounce of strength he had, ultimately defeating the Balrog on the mountainside. Although victorious, Gandalf was left weakened by the intense battle. After a long time of being empty and dark, Khazad-Dûm got a new chance for life. Durin the Seventh, a strong and determined leader of the dwarves, decided to take back the old city. This happened sometime after the year 171 of the Fourth Age. Durin the Seventh led the dwarves back into Khazad-Dûm. They came with hope and energy, ready to restore their ancient home. Thanks to his leadership, the dwarves managed to reclaim the city that had once been theirs. When the dwarves returned, Khazad-Dûm began to come alive again. The great halls, which had been silent for so long, once again echoed with the sounds of dwarven work. The clinking of hammers and the bustling of activity filled the city. Under Durin the Seventh's leadership, Khazad-Dûm became a busy and important place once more. Khazad-Dûm, the magnificent underground city, was a marvel of dwarven architecture. This grand city had multiple levels connected by flights of stone steps. Above the Great Gate, there were at least 6 distinct levels, while many more levels stretched far below, known as the Deeps. Each level was a labyrinth of arched passages, large chambers, and grand halls supported by many columns. The walls in these halls were often black, highly polished and smooth like glass, adding to the city's impressive appearance. Below the Great Gates, Khazad-Dûm had various important areas. The treasuries, armor storage, dungeons, and mines were located here, showcasing the city's wealth and military might. One of the most famous features of Khazad-Dûm was the Endless Stair, a massive spiral staircase with thousands of steps. This staircase rose from the deepest dungeons all the way up to Durin's Tower, situated at the top of the mountain peak called Celebrill. Unfortunately, this incredible structure was destroyed during the epic battle between Gandalf and the Balrog, known as Durin's Bane. In its prime, Khazad-Dûm was a city filled with light and beauty. It was illuminated by many sparkling crystal lamps that lit up the vast underground spaces. The higher levels of the city had skylights carved into the mountain, allowing natural daylight to flood in. This made the city feel less like a cave and more like a majestic palace. The city had 2 main entrances. The East Gate, also known as Dimrill Gate, was the primary entrance, which opened up to Dimrill Dale. From here, visitors would enter the first hall of Moria, the starting point of their journey into the city. The West Gate was a significant passage that allowed travelers to cross the Misty Mountains without facing the harsh weather and difficult terrain of the Red Horn Pass, located 15 to 20 miles to the north. This gate was crucial for trade and travel. Gates in Middle-earth, as noted in the J.R.R. Tolkien Encyclopedia, are not just practical entry points. They also carry symbolic meaning. Gates often represent both exclusion and admission, test the character and wisdom of those who pass through them, and add a sense of mystery and privilege to their surroundings. This was certainly true for the Grand Gates of Khazad-Dûm, which marked the entrance to one of the greatest cities ever built by the dwarves. The doors of Durin were the main entrance to the underground city of Moria. They were also known as the West Gate or the West Door. These doors were special because when they were closed, they became nearly invisible and couldn't be opened by just pushing or pulling. They were crafted with great care by Celebrimbor, an elf from Eregion, and Narvi, a dwarf who worked with mithril, a rare and valuable metal found in Moria itself. The designs on the doors were beautifully detailed. They included important symbols such as the emblem of Durin, which was a symbol of the Dwarf Kings, the two trees of the High Elves, and the star of the House of Fëanor. These designs were made from Ithilden, a special type of reflective metal, which made them shine in the light. Tolkien, the creator of The Lord of the Rings, drew a picture of the doors of Durin. This drawing was the only detailed visual representation of these doors in the books during his lifetime, aside from cover art and calligraphy. The picture showed how the doors looked and intricate designs they had. When the moonlight hit the doors, the designs would become visible. To open the doors, a special password was needed. This password was hidden within the designs themselves. The doors also had a second password that was required to actually unlock them. During an adventure, the Fellowship of the Ring, which included characters like Frodo Baggins and Gandalf, tried to use these doors to enter Moria. However, they were stopped by a creature called the Watcher in the Water. This creature, which lived in the water near the doors, used its long tentacles to slam the doors shut, trapping the Fellowship inside in complete darkness. The inscription on the doors was written in Sindarin, an Elvish language, using a special script called Tengwar. Gandalf, one of the characters in the Fellowship, was able to read its inscription. It said, "The doors of Durin, Lord of Moria, speak, friend, and enter. I, Narve, made them." Celebrimbor of Holland drew these designs. This message was a guide for how to open the doors, indicating that saying the right word would allow someone to enter. There is some debate about the name Moria on the doors. The name means the Black Pit in Elvish, and some scholars think it is strange because it wasn't used to describe the city until after a dark event involving a Balrog. There are a few theories about this. One idea is that Celebrimbor might have known about the name before it became known. Another theory is that the magical writing on the doors could have changed over time. It's also suggested that Gandalf might have read an old name, had Hadrond on the doors, and said Moria instead to make it clearer to the people he was with. The doors of Durin were not just a practical entrance, but also a significant piece of art with hidden meanings and magical features. They were a symbol of the ancient connection between the elves and dwarves and played an important role in the story of Moria. Tolkien's tales of doors, mines, and enchanted rings were influenced by real-life discoveries and myths. One key inspiration came from a place called Dwarf's Hill. In 1928, a fascinating archaeological find was made at Lydney Park in Gloucestershire, England. There, researchers uncovered an ancient temple dedicated to a god named Nodens. This site was not just any location. It was known locally as Dwarf's Hill. During his visit, Tolkien encountered a Latin inscription related to the temple. The inscription spoke about a ring that had been lost and a donation made to Nodens in hope of its return. Tolkien's fascination with this inscription and the site's name likely sparked his imagination for creating his dwarves and the mysterious rings in his stories. In 1932, Tolkien connected Nodens with an Irish hero named Nuada Alger Tiam, also known as Nuada the Silver Hand. This connection was significant for Tolkien because it brought together several elements that would later appear in his stories: a powerful god hero, a magical ring, dwarves, and the concept of a silver hand. The scholar Tom Shippey suggested that these elements had a major impact in Tolkien's writing, helping to shape the rich world of Middle-earth. Tolkien was also intrigued by the site's folklore and the old mine shafts found there. The mines and the local stories could have inspired Tolkien's descriptions of Moria and the Lonely Mountain. Celebrimbor, a character in his stories, is named Silverhand in Sindarin, which ties back to the original legend of Nuada. The similarities between Dwarf's Hill and the settings in Tolkien's work show how real-world locations influence his imaginative creations. Another source of inspiration for Tolkien came from Norwegian folktales. In 1937, Tolkien introduced the realm of Moria in his book The Hobbit. Later, he explained that the name Moria was inspired by Soria Moria Castle, a location mentioned in Scandinavian stories that translated by a scholar named Descent. Tolkien liked the sound of Moria because it worked well with the idea of mines and had a pleasing rhythm. The tales translated by Descent were part of a collection called Norwegian Folktales, published in 1852, and these stories included various adventures and magical elements which fit well with the themes Tolkien was exploring. He also drew from the Poetic Edda, an ancient collection of Norse poems. In one story from the Edda, the hero's quest involves Misty Mountains, orcs, and giants, elements that closely resemble the world Tolkien created. His knowledge of these folk tales and ancient text helped him build a rich and immersive world in his stories. The combination of real-life sites like Dwarf's Hill and the mythical elements from Norwegian tales provided a solid foundation for the imaginative world of Middle-earth. Tolkien's Middle-earth was shaped by a mix of historical discoveries and ancient myths. The Temple of Nodens and the stories from Norwegian folklore gave him ideas that contributed to the creation of his unique and captivating world. These real-world influences helped turn his fictional realm into a place that feels both magical and deeply rooted in history. In Tolkien's story, the fall of the dwarves is a key theme. According to critic Jane Chance, the downfall of the dwarves, first those from Durin's line and later Balin's group, is due to their greed for the mithril hidden deep within Moria. This greed is seen as their main flaw, which ultimately leads to their destruction. The ancient Balrog, a powerful creature from the depths of Moria, embodies and amplifies this greed. Chance also points out that Balin's death near the lake symbolizes his inability to see his own faults. Mirror, described as a dark and reflective lake, serves as a metaphor for Balin's blindness to his own flaws. Critic Clive Tully observes that the fight between Gandalf and the Balrog on Durin's Bridge resembles a shamanistic contest where spiritual forces clash. However, Tully suggests a closer comparison to medieval literature, such as St. Patrick's Purgatory and Dante's Divine Comedy. In these works, characters face significant trials and transformations, much like Gandalf's battle with the Balrog. This clash can be seen as a symbol of a struggle between good and evil, highlighting Gandalf's role as a heroic figure. The death and rebirth of Gandalf the Grey into Gandalf the White is viewed by critics like Jane Chance and J.R.R. as a form of transfiguration. This transformation, where Gandalf's color changes from gray to white, is often compared to the death and resurrection of Christ. This change represents a spiritual renewal and a greater power, suggesting a parallel with the Christian story of resurrection. Gandalf's return as a more powerful being underscores the theme of overcoming darkness and emerging stronger. Professor Zu Zlosnik highlights the intricate detail in Tolkien's world building. She points out how Tolkien created elaborate elements such as the Book of Mazarbul, which appears in Moria. This book, with its burnt and tattered pages, was designed to add depth and realism to the story. Although it wasn't included in the first edition of the Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien had hoped for a facsimile of it to appear. Zlosnik connects this with attention to detail with the Gothic style of Horace Walpole, known for his love of elaborate and mysterious settings. Tolkien's dedication to crafting such detailed elements reflects his desire to make his fictional world feel as real and immersive as possible. Tolkien's work is rich with themes of greed, transformation, and detailed world building. The downfall of the dwarves, Gandalf's battle with Balrog, and his subsequent transformation are all central to the story's deeper meanings. Critics and scholars have explored these themes, drawing connections to historical and literary sources. Tolkien's careful attention to detail, even in elements that were not initially included in the published book, showcases his commitment to creating a vivid and engaging fantasy world. Aaron Derwin, writing for The Artifice, draws an interesting comparison between the Fellowship's experiences in Moria and the First World War poem The Rear Guard by Siegfried Sassoon. In Sassoon's poem, soldiers move through dark labyrinthine tunnels and encounter strange, muttering creatures underground. This imagery is similar to the Fellowship's unsettling experience in Moria. Derwin suggests that the poem's description of groping through dark, claustrophobic spaces mirrors the Fellowship's own journey through the mines of Moria, where they encounter the orcs and the fearsome Balrog, stirred by the hobbit Pippin's actions. Charles A. Hodder, a scholar of English literature, makes another intriguing comparison. He likens the clashing gate that shuts behind the Fellowship to the wandering rocks in Greek mythology. These rocks are known for their dangerous proximity to the underworld. Hadar also compares the Watcher in the Water, a monstrous guardian of the gates, to the perils faced by Odysseus in Greek myth. In this comparison, the Watcher and the Clashing Gate are similar to Odysseus's dangerous journey between the sea monster Scylla and the whirlpool Charybdis. This parallel highlights the perilous nature of the Fellowship's passage through Moria. Critics, including Jane Chance, have also drawn parallels between Gandalf's death in Moria and his return as Gandalf the White to Christian symbolism. Chance compares this transformation to Christ's transfiguration, a significant event in Christian belief where Jesus is transformed and revealed in his divine glory. This comparison emphasizes the dramatic change and renewal that Gandalf undergoes. Just as Christ's transfiguration represents a profound spiritual change, Gandalf's transformation symbolizes a rebirth and empowerment, marking a key moment in his role in the story. Matthew Dickerson, writing in the J.R.R. Tolkien Encyclopedia, explores the symbolism of Moria in Tolkien's world. Dickerson argues that Moria stands out among the many dark, underground places in Tolkien's writings. He describes Moria as both a tomb and a womb, representing death and new beginnings. This idea is supported by the contrasting nature of the two lakes near Moria's entrance and exit. One lake is dark and foreboding, while the other is clearer and more inviting. Gandalf's death and subsequent rebirth as Gandalf the White also supports this dual symbolism. In Christian terms, baptism represents both a symbolic death and a new life, reflecting the transformation and renewal that occur in Moria. There has been some speculation about the origins of the name Moria. Some wondered if it was related to the biblical mountains of Moria, where Abraham was to sacrifice his son, Isaac. However, Tolkien clarified that Moria means black chasm in Sindarin, a language of his own creation. The root Mor in Sindarin appears in words like Mordor, Morgoth, and Morgul, all suggesting darkness or evil. Tolkien explicitly stated that the name Moria was not connected to the biblical place of Moria, ensuring that any resemblance was purely coincidental. In Peter Jackson's film adaptation of The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Moria is brought to life with a stunning visual design. Jackson took inspiration from the artwork of Alan Lee, a conceptual artist who worked on the film trilogy. Lee's illustrations helped shape the look and feel of Moria's underground halls, creating a visually captivating setting that matched the descriptions in J.R.R. Tolkien's books. For the movie, Moria was constructed on a smaller scale, at 1/12 of its actual size, to give it a grand and imposing appearance. Moria has also made its mark in the world of video games and board games. One notable example is the roguelike computer game Moria. This game challenges players to navigate a maze-like version of Moria's mines, with the ultimate goal of reaching the deepest levels and defeating a Balrog, just like the Fellowship's quest in the story. In the realm of board games, Moria appears in Reiner Knizia: The Lord of the Rings. This game allows players to experience adventurers as inspired by Tolkien's world, including encounters in the mines of Moria. For those who enjoy massively multiplayer online role-playing games, The Lord of the Rings Online offers an expansion called Mines of Moria. This expansion takes players through various levels of the underground realm. Starting from the doors of Durin, players can explore several key areas, including Durin's Way, which leads to the cliffs of Zirac-Zigil. The adventure continues through regions like Dolphin View, Zalim Melek, and Nun Melek, eventually reaching the east doors known as the First Hall. Deeper into Moria, players encounter the Silvertine Lodes, the Redhorn Lodes, and further down, the Submerged Waterworks, the Fiery Flaming Deeps, and the Foundations of Stone. It's here that players can relive the epic battle between Gandalf and the Balrog before ascending the Endless Stair. Music has also paid tribute to Moria. Dutch composer Johan de May creates a movement in his Symphony No. 1 titled The Lord of the Rings called Journey to the Dark. The movement's directly inspired by the events that unfold in Moria. It is divided into two parts, the Mines of Moria and the Bridge of Khazad-Dum. Through this symphonic work, de May captures the tension and drama of the Fellowship's experience in Moria, bringing the atmosphere of Tolkien's legendary mines to life throughout the music. Moria's influence extends far beyond the pages of Tolkien's books. Peter Jackson's film visually captured the grandeur of the underground halls, while video games and board games offered interactive ways to explore its depths. Music, too, has celebrated Moria through compositions that evoke the excitement and drama of this iconic setting. Each medium brings its own unique interpretation of Moria, helping fans experience this legendary place from outside perspectives. So that brings us to the end of today's video, and I would love to hear from you in the comments below. How about you sound off? Let us know. Would you like to visit this place someday? And are you fascinated by its story? One more question. Which character do you like the most? I would love to know, so please let us know in the comment section below. And don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. Making sure you like and share our video encourages us and allows us to bring you more content. But nothing encourages us more than subscribing and pressing that bell icon to allow for all the up-to-date uploads that we have for you. You'll be notified immediately. Thank you for spending time out of your busy day with us today, and we'll look forward to catching up with you in our next video. Remember, always stay exploring, and thanks for watching.